They looked fast and powerful, but drove more like slow cruisers. These muscle cars had all the right looks. The Dodge Challenger had a sleek fastback body, but only did 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 9.6 seconds. The Camaro SS looked aggressive with wide fenders, but some versions took over 9 seconds to hit 60. The GTO had a mean grille, but with emissions-era tuning, it barely cracked 8.5 seconds. Even the Corvette Stingray, with its sharp nose and the blacked-out Buick Grand National, looked ready to fly. But some models struggled to keep up with modern sedans. Which of these muscle machines would have fooled you? And does style still beat speed? Stick around as we count down 10 slow muscle cars that only looked fast. Don't forget to subscribe for more muscle car myths and legends. 10. 1973 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray 454. The 1973 Corvette Stingray was all about curves and charisma. Shark nose styling, muscular fenders, and classic C3 lines made it an automotive icon. When you saw the 454 cubic inch badge, you'd assume serious performance. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case anymore. Due to emissions controls, the big block V8 had been neutered to 275 horsepower, down significantly from previous years. With a 4-speed manual, it managed 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6.4 seconds. Quick but underwhelming for a Corvette. It was the final year for chrome bumpers, adding to the illusion of speed. Despite its visual presence, the 1973 Stingray was more of a showpiece than a speed demon. 9. 1972 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454. The Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 was once a road monster, the pinnacle of GM's muscle car lineup. In 1970, the same car produced an earth-shaking 450 horsepower, and the body design remained mostly unchanged through 1972. But under the hood, things were very different. The LS5 version of the 454 V8 had made 270 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque. Acceleration fell as a result, with the car taking around 6.4 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour compared to 5.3 seconds just a year earlier. The Chevelle still looked like a street-legal dragster, but the performance had faded. It was a muscle car in style, but no longer the terror it once was. 8. 1972 Pontiac GTO 455. The Pontiac GTO is often credited as the original muscle car, and in 1972 it still wore that reputation well. With its bold split grille, bulging fenders, and commanding road presence, the GTO looked like it could smoke anything on the strip. But things had changed under the hood. While the 455 HO version still had a solid 300 horsepower, many buyers got the visually identical non-HO version, which made only 250 horsepower. Torque and throttle response also suffered due to lower compression and tamer cams. The result? The weaker version took 6.7 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, nearly a full second behind the high-output model. Same look, very different power. 7. 1972 Chevrolet Camaro SS 396. The 1972 Chevrolet Camaro SS 396 was dressed to impress. With its aggressive front end, flared wheel arches, and deep performance roots, it looked ready to rule the streets. But performance-wise, it was no longer the drag strip menace it once was. While the 396 badge remained, the actual engine displaced 402 cubic inches and had been significantly detuned to 240 horsepower. A dramatic fall from the 375 horsepower of the 1970 model. Torque was also down to 345 pound-feet. Acceleration dropped accordingly, with 0 to 60 miles per hour taking 6.8 seconds. Though still relatively quick, the visual promise of pure speed wasn't matched by what you got when you floored the pedal. 6. 1974 Dodge Charger 440. The 1974 Dodge Charger 440 looked like a machine built for speed. low-slung body, wide stance, scooped hood, and available racing stripes. It had all the intimidating flare muscle cars are famous for. But under the surface, performance had been reined in. The once mighty 440 cubic inch V8 was now pushing out just 275 horsepower, thanks to tightening emission standards. That's a sharp contrast from earlier versions that made up to 430 horsepower in reality. Even though it managed a 0 to 60 mph time of 7.2 seconds, it couldn't hold a candle to the earlier Hemis or six-pack options. This Charger still looked fierce, but it didn't perform like its aggressive appearance suggested. 5. 1973 Ford Mustang Mach 1. The 1973 Ford Mustang Mach 1 had all the visual drama of a high-performance car. Aggressive stripes, a long hood, sporty stance, and optional hood scoops. From a distance, you'd think it was ready to tear up the asphalt, but looks were deceiving. This was the final year of the first-generation Mustang, and under the hood, the mighty 351 Cleveland V8 had been defanged. The base engine put out a mere 157 horsepower, with even the high-output variant reaching just 243 horsepower. That translated into 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8.8 seconds and quarter-mile times over 14 to 16 seconds. The Mach 1's aesthetics promised performance, but the detuned engine delivered a very different experience. More cruise than speed. 4. 1974 Dodge Challenger. The 1974 Dodge Challenger still wore the same sharp suit from its muscle heyday. Bulging fenders, menacing grille, and wide stance. It looked every bit like the tire-shredding icon it once was. But emissions regulations and the ongoing oil crisis had taken their toll. The smallest engine, the 318 cubic inch V8, offered just 150 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. Acceleration was underwhelming. 0 to 60 miles per hour in 9.6 seconds with a manual, and an even slower 10.1 seconds with the Torque Flight 3-speed automatic. While visually near identical to the monstrous 1970 RT models, this version had little of the bite. It remained a head-turner in traffic, but not because it left anyone in the dust. 3. 1972 Ford Torino Sport 429. The 1972 Ford Torino Sport 429 looked the part of a street warrior. Fastback roofline, sleek proportions, and an intimidating grille made it seem like a predator on four wheels. This model even gained attention in pop culture thanks to its appearance in the Fast and Furious franchise. But reality didn't match the silver screen. The top engine option, the 429 cubic inch V8, had been neutered to 208 horsepower, a steep drop from its earlier glory days. To make matters worse, it only came with a 3-speed Cruise-O-Matic, further dulling performance. Acceleration suffered significantly, with 0 to 60 miles per hour taking 9.2 seconds. The car had the stance and sound of a performance machine, but underperformed in nearly every measurable way. 2. 1972 Oldsmobile 442 Rocket 350. The 1972 Oldsmobile 442 still looked like a heavyweight champion of the muscle era. It had the large grille, bold stripes, sculpted hood, and fastback silhouette that defined performance. But don't be fooled by the badge, this car didn't always come with muscle under the hood. The base version packed the Rocket 350 V8, producing a low 160 horsepower. Even upgraded dual exhaust variants only pushed out 200 horsepower. With torque figures between 275 to 300 pound-feet, this car crawled to 60 miles per hour in about 10 seconds. Despite appearances, many 442s of this era were built more for boulevard cruising than quarter-mile glory. 1. 1982 Buick Grand National. The 1982 Buick Grand National looked like the kind of car that prowled dark streets at midnight. Dressed in all black with flat body panels and a race-inspired stance, it screamed speed, but inside it whispered. This first-year Grand National had no turbocharged fury, just a 3.8-liter naturally aspirated V6, producing 110 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque. With a 3-speed automatic, it took a sluggish 11.4 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour. Later models would redeem the Grand National name, especially the turbocharged GNX. But the 1982 version was all about appearance. It introduced a legend, but started slow, very slow. It looked ready to hunt Camaros and Mustangs, but couldn't catch them. That's a wrap on our video. These 10 muscle cars had the aggressive styling, bulging hoods, and wide stances of true street warriors, but under the hood, they were shadows of their former selves. Emissions rules, fuel crises, and rising insurance costs stole their power, leaving behind beautiful machines that couldn't back up their looks. From the Mach 1 to the Grand National, they promised speed but delivered disappointment. Which one would you still love to own even knowing it's slow? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of muscle car myths and legends.